In this demo, we are going to see the installation and configuration of Rational Test Automation Server on Red Hat Openshift. We are going to start with creation of an Openshift cluster in IBM Cloud, and then we are going to install the RTAS server, and we are going to configure the entitlement key and the licenses, and we are going to create a new user group, and finally we are going to configure the Git repository, execute some tests, and then analyze the results. Let's get into the demo. In this step, I'm going to create an OpenShift cluster in IBM Cloud. And we can select the region where we need to have this installation. And also the configuration of the missions. Now the cluster is getting created. Let's wait for that. Now we can open the CLI from the IBM Cloud for creation of the RTAS project. So I'm copying the login command. Copy the login tokens and input it into the IBM Cloud CLI. And now we are going to create the project. We have successfully created it. So now we are going to interact from this VM image. Now we are going to generate the access entitlement key. OC create secret. We are going to configure the licenses. Before configuring the license for RTAS, we are going to verify whether the license server contains the respective licenses. We use the installation manager as a simple check and then test the connection to that license server. Once when we have this message that this licenses are available, then we take the license server information and input it into the config file. So now the installation is completed. We get an output with the reference URL for RTAS server. If you are going to have any errors in the pod, then this step might be helpful to debug it. You can see that the user libs 0. This pod is failing, and this is due to the persistent volume claim. Let's delete this pod and then recreate it. So now we are going to create the new users. So as an output, we had a link to the key clock. Let's open the key clock application to configure the admin user. We will have the password once when we run this command. This is as a part of the output. Copy this password and paste it into the key clock. Now we can configure the user. To get the correct user ID, I'm using whoami command. Assign the appropriate groups. Now we are going to configure the repository and execute the test. Let's get into the RTAS interface. Create a new project. And we can see that user has an option to allocate the number of floating user licenses. Let's get into the project. And now let's configure the repository. I'm selecting a project from my repository. The repository is configured. Now let's look into the data. So in the data set, we have data for searching rational test workbench. Let's run this simple test. The intention of this test is to search for rational test workbench, and there is a verification points that will search for the cookie, and this test will fail because the cookie has changed. Let's view the results. As expected, the test has failed, but we have a clear indication of a step-by-step execution of where the test has failed. The steps that are passed are highlighted in green, and we see a verification point that's failed. There is also an option for running it like a movie, so you can see a step-by-step execution screenshots. So now it failed at this step because the cookie look and feel is different from the previous recording when it was being made. As a summary, we started by creating an Openshift cluster in IBM Cloud. We installed and configured RTAS server, and also we ran a simple test in RTAS server. That ends the demo. Thank you.